All right, it's starting to really come together now. There are definitely some issues with it, but they're pretty easily fixed, and I think we're in the downhill part, and the hardest stuff is behind us. Um, so here we go. We're gonna start by removing the eyeball from this original layer so we can more accurately see what our pixel containing layers show. And it looks like we can crop almost on all sides. And we hit the C tool to bring up the crop tool, and we're gonna start cropping in on the image and make sure we don't include anywhere where we don't have pixels. And up here in the corners, I'm actually going to include this because I think that we'll be able to content aware fill some stars in these edges, and I think we can do the same thing for down here. And on this side, we're going to try to extend the foreground here where there's missing pixels. We'll just see what we can do. So I'm going to hit enter on that. All right, and now I'll show you what we're working with. We've got the foreground layer, and you can let me toggle it on and off. The foreground layer is here. We pretty much just want it to sit right where it was, right there. And I'm going to try to add pixels to the foreground layer using this content or the spot healing brush set to content aware. Now the image itself, the foreground itself, is missing pixels in here, so I'm going to just try to draw in with that spot healing brush along that missing line, and it did a super job of actually creating landscape for us. And on this one, instead of painting down, I'm going to click at the top. I'm going to hold shift and also click down here, and it did again a great job of extending these lines and giving us more pixels. There's quite a big section down here. I don't know if it's going to work as well. There's a lot of texture in here. It might actually look fake if I do it down here, but I am going to give it a shot. Again, using the spot healing brush, it's a content aware, which is J shortcut. So I just painted in there, and it did an all right job. I think this is an awkward spot here, so I might hit J again and go over this spot. And it did a pretty good job. There's another little weird spot. Yeah, it did a fabulous job, I think. So I'm gonna just keep making those fills on our landscape. And you might not have to do this on your image. This is the result of doing a pano. And if you did a pano and you had everything lined up a little bit better than we did, you don't have to do this on every single shot or every single blend. So I'm going to click there and then hold shift and click at the end, and that makes a nice line of everything. I think it did a good job of filling it in there. Okay, so our foreground now covers the entire area of the image. That looks way better. And so spot healing brush is great. I mean, look what we did with the spot healing brush. We went from here to here, like completely filled in the foreground despite that missing pixel issue. Yeah, here. It's actually pretty amazing. Got our foreground, and I want to look at this area again. Looks like what happened here is we cut off some of the land up here, and that's why we get this weirdness. So we can go into our layer mask here and hit B for brush, and we're gonna expand. We're gonna paint into our layer mask just manually to try to bring back this missing information. These city lights. This is where you have to be pretty careful. But if I don't have those lights, then I'm gonna have these weird areas. Let's go back. So either I can bring back those lights or I can try to hide them. So where was it? We were here, but we noticed that the foreground had some pixels above it that weren't included in our selection. So two options are try to recover that information, or we can kind of lie and cover those lights up, which I think might be better. Let's see here. if we, on our foreground layer, not on our layer mask, we use the stamp tool, clone stamp tool, and we selected this straight line as our source at 100%, and then I painted that across here. We can just cover up those lights. And I think what we'll have to do is do this clone stamp thing a few times. That way it looks more realistic. And I'm going to do it across here, but you'll notice that it doesn't look like it's actually doing anything. And the reason why that is because we have the layer mask concealing any adjustment we make right here. That means I have to go to this layer mask and with a white brush paint over this area in order to get it to show. So before and after. We did a good job, but we also have this area of really low contrast on the horizon here. And I definitely want to try to fix that by making that line more defined. It just looks a little bit odd. We also have a little bit of what's called a halo here, where the sky is much brighter just at the horizon, which makes it look very unnatural. So again, I'm going to get this clone stamp tool, and I'm going to get a spot where I think the horizon looks more natural, maybe over here, and use that as my source. And this is kind of trial and error. We have a really clear defined edge over there, and I'm gonna, whoa. So we have another issue where the layer mask is hiding what really lies beneath. There are actually lights there, but the layer mask did a really good job of hiding those. So I think this is an issue that we're gonna have to come back to when we merge the visible layers. But for now, I think I'm getting a little bit too in-depth, and I should stick to the more important features of the image. So I promised we'd work on this part, the removing the party that was going on down here. And I mean, doing this as your first time out there, as your only time, I think it would be very difficult to restore the shoreline and remove the glow from this area. What we did in the image, for this completed image, was we took one of my images from when I was previously at Alstrom Point. I have this image from just a few weeks before you guys were there, and it's got the foreground, and it's got this area with no one on it. So I'm going to take it and paste it onto our foreground and paint it in with a layer mask. I want to make sure I have remove chromatic aberration active, and I do, and I'm going to hit edit and edit in Photoshop CC. And I'm also sending everyone this raw file so you can do the same exact thing to your photo. So I've got my foreground, or my picture here. I'm going to hit, double click on this and unlock it, and then I'm going to hit Command A, Command C, and I'm going to go back to our image over here and hit Command V to paste it in. So now I've got it pasted, and what we want to do is hide everything in this image. So I'm going to put a layer mask on it, and then hit Command I to invert it. So now it's completely hidden, but I want to get the brush, and with white ink in the foreground, I'm going to paint in what we want to reveal at 100%. So I'm at 100%, and right now I can't really see it, so I'm kind of guessing where it is. It's kind of like right there. And so yeah, that looks pretty good. We're definitely hiding the issue, but there is an issue. There's another issue that we created, which is balance. The temperature of the image that we pasted in is much different than that of the image we've been working on. So let me try this again, and I'm going to remove where we don't need it with the black brush, so we don't really need it in here. Remove it. it's here, we can get rid of this because some of their light was on this shoreline. Yeah, so right in here is when the problem starts. And these won't completely 100% match, but we're going to try our best to conceal the parts, every part that we can. We only want to put this image over where the problem lies, which is, you know, this real bright area. So let's see how we're doing. It looks better. And I can also hit the backslash key and see that, you know, I've painted all the way up here, and I need to actually hide this. So I'm hiding all these areas that need to be hidden. Click on this again, and it looks like we're not quite aligned here. I'm going to have to, with the white brush, paint back in that we want to reveal this. Yeah, so another issue is that the image that I pasted in is not the same aspect, so I'm going to shrink it a little bit. Enter. Another way you can try to line these up is lower the opacity of this image we're pasting in there, and then move it over, try to align these features. That looks better. Looks like they're not going to align 100%. So I'm going to delete layer mask, and I'm also going to try a different method. I'm going to click on both of these and hit edit, auto align layers, and hit auto. Okay, so this didn't work either. Quite a big difference here. So at this point, I'm going to go back into where we put it before. I think that looks better. Yeah, that seems better to me. So I'll put this at 100%. I'm going to start over on this layer mask and just try to paint out this party by painting white to actually reveal where we want the party taken out. So the glaringly obvious difference between the two is the color temperature in the water. There's also a lot more noise in the shot that was taken more recently because of the temperature. I mean, not the temperature, but the temperature. So what we have to do is we actually have to go up to filter, noise, and we have to do add noise. I'm going to add maybe 5% of noise. And then I'm going to go to hue saturation and make sure that this is checked again, so we're only affecting that one we just brought in. And set this to 0. And I'm going to click on this section, it's the blues. So I'm going to move the hue of the blues and move it more towards our source image. I might have to make it a little bit brighter. About there. So also, what I'm going to do is feather this water out a little bit more. So I'm going to get my brush, make sure my hardness is set to 0, and at a real low opacity, like 30, I'm just going to go back in on this edge and try to get rid of these real dark spots. Oh, don't want that. Get rid of that. And when I zoom out, no more party. There's still a little bit of weirdness just right here. So I'm going to go back with my brush and put a little bit more there. Bring back a little bit more here. Now that light is from the party a little bit. And it does stick out. So if you really wanted to take care of it, you could do an adjustment layer, brightness contrast, and inverse it so it's only, well, we'll inverse it in a second, but I'm going to click on it and hit brightness and bring down the brightness. We want to uncheck that, that way it's impacting the entire image, bringing down the brightness, and now I'm going to flip this so it's not impacting anything, and then paint white in on here to actually reveal the darker adjustment layer. So I'm at like 10%, I'm just going to paint a couple of brushes on here. That way this more accurately reflects the rest of the shoreline and doesn't show the light from the party. So before and after, maybe opacity change to make more natural. And I think that the combination of everything we just did is effective in removing that party. So before and after, did a pretty good job. I think that there's no way you'd be able to tell something fishy was going on here just by looking at the image like this. So in the next video, we'll take a look at removing the tripod over here. We're going to add some more adjustments to the sky, and that should be it. This one was kind of tough, but thanks for sticking through.